the girl and wipe away the debt.
Bring us the girl and wipe away the debt.
Elizabeth! I gotta catch up to her. Come after me if you want. I'm not letting you take her, you hear me? Ah, you feathered piece of shit! I'm not going to... Snow. It's July. Elizabeth! Can you hear me?
Get your hands off of me! Just take me back to my tower. Please, please.
What's that?
Some men dream of money.
What the...
Some men dream of love. My father dreamt of a flood of fire. We were given Eden, and we turned it into Sodom. Why do we deserve salvation? The Lord gave Noah a fish in the form of a flood, but he was not so easy on me. He said, "Prophet, I want you to train..."
What is this place? What are you planning to do to me?
Hello everyone, welcome back to Bioshock Infinite after that little bit of an intro here. So yeah, I have no ammo, and just get used to seeing the very annoying message that comes up every 2 seconds saying, "You're low on ammo, find more," because I'm gonna be low on ammo for like most of the rest of the game, as I've said before. They really do not place that many things to allow you to reload around this section of the game, but require you to do things that, like, require you shooting a billion things. Like this section here, because you'll notice none of these guys are attacking me, and that's because they need to be woken up by this man, who I'm pretty sure there's no way to get around that one. Almost all of the other ones in the game I know you can avoid. But yeah, I think the dude with the siren on his head is literally called a Boy of Silence, which is a really fucking funny name for an enemy. And then I forget what these guys are called. They're called like his little boys or whatever. But yeah, I kind of knew this was going to happen, just die a billion times because I don't have enough ammo to actually kill these dudes. Yeah. It's actually kind of a smart strategic choice to let yourself die when you're in that kind of situation, because they give you more ammo when you reload than you could ever just find lying around, of course. But there we have it. And I'm just going to say right out the bat here, even though we're already almost 6 minutes into the video, but nothing's really happened yet, that this is a pretty padded out and kind of uninteresting part of the game. I was already bitching in the last segment about how there's just this long, dragging stretch of the game that we're in right now where you're basically just running around and looking at tears and listening to voxophones and having a bunch of shit explained to you. All of which doesn't actually really have all that much to do with the real plot. I was just looking back on the Wikipedia plot synopsis for this game, and I realized that there's like 5 or 6 paragraphs to the entire thing, and the last like 3 are literally going to be what will end up being the last like 20 minutes of this run. So there's just this long stretch that we're in right now that's filled with exposition and filled with voxophones like this. That, you know, I guess they, like, flesh out the world or whatever, but, like, it's just going from room to room, shooting enemies and being doled out small amounts of information until you get to the end of the section, and then you have a big thing, a big fight happens, or a big revelation, or something intense happens, something changes, and then, you know, you go back and do more of that stuff, and I don't know, it's just not particularly interesting to me, so. But yeah, here is where you can actually avoid, just endless shooting at enemies, is by not being seen by that guy, and I got very lucky there.
Child, would you like to pray with me?
You're hurting me. Please just let me go.
We're going to cure you.
I'm not sick.
Your spirit is. All I ever want.
See, like, I understand that this is supposed to be, like, fleshing stuff out or whatever, but we already knew that she was tortured and experimented on and made to do things. Like, hearing this doesn't give me any more insight into anything that's happened. And, like, you know, seeing all these bloody tools of torture, it doesn't really, like, give me any new context or new information or anything like that. I'm just gonna spend the second half of this run shitting on this game, apparently. I'm not going out of my way to make it like that, but it is
Our minds are
weird.
born, festering with sin. Some are so blighted, they will never find redemption. The mind must be pulled up from the roots. My children are without blame, without fault, and without choice. For what is the value of will when the spirit is found wanting?
So yeah, Elizabeth has been indoctrinated and stuff, and now we get to hear her do really, like, silly sounding, like, preacher bloviating in these voxophones. Yeah, that's never been my favorite thing about this game. As I've said before, the first half of this game I think is really strong, it's really interesting. I think the idea behind the game is interesting enough, but I think it kind of falls apart in more ways than one in the second half. And I don't just mean because it does not take on a political ideology or treat its, political subject matter in the way that I think it should. There's a lot of other things, and I'm gonna kind of jump the gun on this a little bit, because this revelation isn't actually going to be made for like a couple more videos probably, but I'm not that worried about it, and also we are in a situation with a lot of downtime, so I might as well. Without getting into too many specifics or spoiling anything specific right out the gate, this game, as I'm sure you could guess from the stuff that's happened so far, will include, or does include, the sort of story trope of, there are infinite worlds, there are infinite realities with every possible outcome for every decision and situation that there could ever be. And, we're all just living in our little timeline. It's not a new idea, I think that would fall under the description of string theory. I really am not at all educated in the actual math or, theoretical physics behind quantum stuff. I mean, that shit is not really meant to be understood by human minds, as far as I'm concerned. But I've always found that, not just here, but in pretty much all stories that include the, there are infinite universes with infinite possibilities and infinite outcomes for everything, and the story you're watching is just one of them, or in this case, many of them intertwining and everything. It kind of undermines stories in a way for me, because if all outcomes end up happening regardless, then what is the significance of any of the events that we experience in the story? Why talk about this specifically when, just because stories have characters and they make decisions for reasons, and what they do and, how they interact in the story and how they interact with the worlds they live in the story are meant to say something. They make the story the story. They make the story what it is. They make the plot say the thing it's saying. And so to, have part of the story be, have part of the point of the story be that, this is just one of billions and billions of different reactions to this decision that this person has had in different realities, and this is just one of them. Well, then who fucking cares? And I thought about it a lot, and spoilers for these movies if you haven't seen them, but Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame, because at the end of Infinity War, as I'm sure you know, Doctor Strange looks through all of the possible outcomes of their war with Thanos, and it's something like 12 million different scenarios. And these are all universes, these are timelines that exist somewhere in space-time, we are led to believe, with quantum stuff. And, the thing is that there's only one timeline where they win. But all those other timelines where they lose, well then, it's nice that we're in the one where they win, but that just leaves everything up to chance. That just is, I don't know, that adds a sort of determinism to things where it's oh good, in this timeline we won. That means we're in the timeline where we won. But then that just means that you won because you were in that timeline, if you know what I mean? If that makes any sense? It kind of removes the consequence from their actions, because it's Well, if they didn't win, then they weren't in the timeline where they win. So, like, and they didn't decide to be in the timeline where they win. It's not like there's anything that they could have done to make it that they don't, or else they wouldn't be in that one timeline. You see what I'm saying? So, and then this game even further complicates that idea because it kind of fucks with the rules of everything, because there are, like, things from certain universes, certain timelines that are taken to other timelines, and then they're not there in those timelines anymore. And then, later on in this story, we are going to stop certain events from happening by cutting off certain timelines, but doesn't this imply that the timelines where you don't cut off, don't make that decision to make those other timelines exist, the timelines where you don't do that still exist and are unfolding in space-time? So, again, without getting into anything specific, like, the suffering that you're trying to not cause is still happening somewhere, but, like, this game suggests that it would be possible to, if in one or all timelines you stop the thing from happening, then those timelines will never happen. But then there isn't a timeline with every possible outcome. If you can stop certain outcomes from ever happening in any timeline, then it's not infinite, and it's not the thing that you say it is, and by extension, the rules that you've set up don't work. So you see how, like, I just think that most stories should keep away from that concept, because it kind of fucks anything you could possibly want to make the story about up. And, like, I don't know, I mean, I guess I could see the possibility of, like, including that very concept into a story. Like, if you wrote a story around, like, that being the point, then I think it could work if you had a story you wanted to tell with that point. But here, this is a story about, how our decisions ripple through time and history. But it also says that, like, all possible decisions exist and have happened and will happen. But also that you can make it not that way. Like, I just don't understand what this game exactly thinks, or what it is. And obviously, I'm not saying that, like, Ken Levine / this game is trying to say that, like, this is actually how life is in real life, and it's the world of this game. I'm just saying, by its own rules, it doesn't make sense and doesn't work, and makes the story not say the thing it's trying to say. And it just kind of makes everything fall apart. So, long story short, same thing with time travel. Like, most movies, when they introduce time travel, it just makes everything in the story make no sense. And I don't even mean, like, logically or scientifically. Like, I don't give a fuck about that, really. But just within, like, bearing in mind what you're trying to say in your story with this concept, like, it usually just ends up undermining itself, in my opinion, including here. So that's my big weird soapbox. I hope that any of that made sense. I feel like I've been rambling like a fucking moron.
What I've done cannot be undone. I cannot stop what I have put in motion. But perhaps I can keep it from ever starting. He was my first hope. And now, he is my last.
Should be able to head downstairs and get to Elizabeth now.
Hello. That scared the fuck out of me when I first played this game. At first I thought I messed something up, like I did something wrong. But no, it's just to be funny. It's just to fuck with you. The other thing that I wrote down in my notes to talk about, that I, talking about all this stuff reminds me of, and that I've been thinking about lately, is a concept that I would like to see a video game story tackle, that I think a video game in particular would be well equipped to tackle more so than a movie. And maybe there is a game that sort of touches on this that I don't know about, and you can tell me if so, but a concept I'd like to see it tackle is the Fermi paradox and the Great Filter. And essentially, if you don't know what the Great Filter is, the Great Filter theory is, it essentially says that, like, mathematically, with the Fermi paradox, is mathematically how many worlds there are and how much time there has been. Just statistically, it's kind of improbable that there are no other intelligent civilizations in the world. So there probably are, but then the question becomes, if there are, and, if you do the math, even if it's like a 1 in a billion thing, then you'd still have like several thousand Earth-like worlds that could achieve, intelligent life. Then why have we heard from none of them? Why is there like zero evidence that we have found that there have ever been fully intelligent civilizations? Like, there's evidence of there having been life before, but it's like microbial and simple life. So obviously there are lots of different theoretical explanations for that. Some of the simpler ones are, we're just not looking right. Like, we don't have the ability to know that we are, seeing or being contacted by other intelligent beings. Maybe they don't want us to, for one reason or another. Maybe, and then the other explanation is the Great Filter. Basically that there is some event in a intelligent civilization's existence that usually ends up keeping them from advancing to the point of, traveling to the next star system, establishing contact with another intelligent civilization. And then it just becomes a matter of what the Great Filter is. And that basically just, your choice of what is the Great Filter, the most common one, really just comes down to how optimistic you are or how rare you think our situation is. So, is the Great Filter like sexual reproduction? Like, is the idea of more complex cells, is that something that that the Earth is unique in? Or maybe it's intelligent life, things with bigger brains and the capacity for abstract thought and tools. Maybe we really are the only place where that has managed to happen. Or maybe it's the technological aspect of it. Maybe it just has never been possible for intelligent civilizations to venture outside of their star system in any meaningful way. So it's an interesting thing to think about, and the very interesting thing as we approach our own probable species and, habitable planet demise in the coming decades and centuries, there's been a great deal of thought given to the idea that maybe capitalism is the Great Filter, or at least our Great Filter, that, we do maybe have the capacity to go outside of our star system and make contact with another intelligent civilization eventually, but that we, are destroying ourselves before we're going to get that. And what is ultimately destroying us? It is our system of mass unsustainable consumption and production under capitalism, and it has only become a thing that threatens the very habitability of the planet ever since it became a mass, globalized, system of consumption and waste and production and pollution. So that's interesting to think about. I don't have like an all-encompassing or like a thesis tying all of that together or anything, but it's interesting to think about. And it would be neat to see a game take on that idea. And I do think that a video game story would be better equipped to talk about that concept than a movie would. But I who knows? Anyway, I'm going to let the rest of this proceed without comment. We have some dystopias to look at. And I'm low on ammo, just in case you didn't know.
Even listen to me anymore. All I can do is watch as what I set into motion slides into its terminal stage. It took all I had left in me just to bring you here.
Elizabeth, I don't understand. I heard you screaming. I was coming to get you. Are we...
Here. Take my hand. The seed of the prophet shall sit the throne and drown in flame the mountains of man. Say what you will about Comstock. He was a hell of a fortune teller. Wasn't the torture that broke me. Wasn't the indoctrination. It was time. Time rots everything, Booker. Even hope.
I was coming.
Songbird. He always stops you.
Yes, but I would find a way.
No. It's too late for me. I brought you here for your sake. Yours and hers. Here.
What is this?
It's for her. She'll know how to read it.
What does it say?
It's advice.
Advice on what?
How not to become me.